Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and look what I found. History hit, unpacking Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Ooh, wow, you're hitting one of my favorite with a medieval historian where we know her. It's an in-depth analysis. In fact, it's an hour long. Well, let's just choose a few segments, the beginning, and then we'll watch a few. And then as always, you'll find a link in the description and pinned comment to the original video to go and watch more if you like what you see.
I'm Dr. Eleanor Yanaga, and I am a medieval historian and one of the co-hosts of the Gone Medieval podcast on the History Hit Network. But today I'm here to talk to you about one of my personal favorite movies of all time, Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
It's kind of...
Iconic scene. Yeah, this is tis but a scratch.
kind of a King Arthur story? Question mark. All about how King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table go looking for, spoiler,
for the Holy Grail.
And along the line, hijinks ensue.
Rather.
It's an absolute banger of a classic.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries.
It is possibly the reason I ended up being a medievalist.
Seriously.
I am stoked to get into it today with you. So,
no, for me, getting into medieval history was the Knights in Playtime, in fact, D&D. England 932 AD. I appreciate the AD, definitely the 70s.
We're in England in 932 AD. That is kind of an interesting point in and of itself, because for medieval people, King Arthur is kind of like a long ago and far away story. It's this idea that he kind of took over sort of after Rome.
And look at that beautiful painting. Look at how well they made, of course, this is 15th century arm harness. I've got my own, but it's beautiful. It really looks gorgeous. The painting, the mail, look how well it's done. Who did this? I wish they credited the artist.
Leaves Britain. So really for them, it's kind of like ancient history. And so they reflect all of their medieval ideals onto this guy in the past who sort of seems like a medieval guy, but he's meant to be like, you know, this distilled, perfect Christian king in the past. So 932, that's way, way, way too late for Arthur from a medieval standpoint. But also, and I want to make this clear, I don't care. That's fine with me. But 932, that's an interesting kind of point for us from a historical point of view. So this is like pre-Norman conquest, right?
Right.
So at this point in time, we're still a bunch of English guys.
Yeah, pretty much. If it was really set in 900, there would be a bunch of like Anglo-Saxons mixed with the locals.
In a Germanic
Original.
language.
Yeah.
And actually like England as a concept in 932,
Yeah.
a little bit nebulous. People would say, oh, I'm like Mercian,
Yeah, of course.
or I am from Northumberland. There had been this period called the Heptarchy recently, where there was lots and lots of different kingdoms all around England. An idea if Englishness was not necessarily there, but again, and to be clear, this is a comedy movie.
Yeah, of course.
However, you know, like they gave me that date. I guess I can make fun of them if they get things wrong. Yeah, I'm going to, for comedic purposes. I'm sure they would let me. It's fine. It's fine.
But follow only if ye...
Oh, look at those shields. We've got a great helmet here. Some painted great helmets. And in fact, this did happen. I mean, medieval art does show this. Maybe I can show you in the Maciejowski Bible, the Morgan Bible. Not sure if you can see very well, but for instance, here we see like some are actual metal, but some you can tell they're a little bit, they've got, like in this case, white paint. This one could be brass, or maybe it's painted. Okay, this one kind of shows it. Look, blue, green, red. So it was absolutely done. Even this one, even the conical helmet has been painted here. So we know the medieval people did that, but it was mostly like a cheap way to decorate your helmet. So in other words, if you could afford it, normally you would have your helmet either polished to a nice matte polish finish, or you could have it mirror polished. But that would be extremely expensive because they didn't have machines to do it. So that would be very, very spendy. So people that still wanted kind of a cool helmet, but they didn't like the rough finish, then they could just paint them and it would be a kind of a cheaper way to decorate your armor.
Be men of valor.
Oh yeah, take the helmets off. Look at this guy's helmet. It kind of reminds me of one of the helmets in Conan Exile, actually. Because the boss looked like a stove. And then when he dies, he could drop the helmet. And then I wore it for very long time. Believe it or not, though, if you look at, she's not going to go into the armor, so I'm going to do that. Now, given the heater shields are pretty bad, because of course they're too thin, and then this, I'm not saying that heater shields would have been extremely thick, not at all, but this looks very cheaply made, unfortunately, and of course it's not properly covered in parchment and then gessoed. But regardless, the male coif is actually pretty good. I mean, look, it covers all the way up to his chin. Now, His Majesty, yeah, I mean, not great. But at least this guy, it kind of looks like it fits him, which this helmet here is also pretty bad. It's like a mixture between an early pot helm and a barbute, I suppose. But
there's always a wyvern.
It's funny.
There's always a dragon. There's always like some guy who's going to come and give you a nice little nip.
The bunnies actually found in medieval literature as they're all over the place. Holy moly.
And it's like interesting what are dangerous creatures in the medieval period that we don't realize now. So for example, unicorns are monsters. Like unicorns aren't nice little horses that have like one horn.
Oh, just like Oblivion. That one was a monster. Goodness gracious, that if you know, you know. I don't need to explain it.
They are a goat mixed with a lion, and the only people that can tame them are virgins. So like they are bloodthirsty and will kill you. And now we're like, yay, My Little Pony about it. And like that's not how it was at the time. So you would be shocked at what we think is cute and cuddly. What they're like, that is a bloodthirsty monster. Now, in this particular case, maybe not so much though.
Yeah. I gotta find it. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Look at this. Yeah, the killer rabbits are a thing. So it's not like they came up with it. It's for the movie. It's a thing. Look at them. They are all over the place. Look at this one. Oh my gosh, the killer rabbits are great. Look at this. Kind of makes me want to play Root. This one even has a helmet and it's painted. I've got the board game Root. It's pretty good. I should play it one of these nights. If you didn't know, good luck getting lost in this rabbit hole. Oh, rabbit hole. There you go. Yeah, that was a good one and unintentional.
Killer bunny rabbit. I love this little bunny rabbit. We see an art trope all the time in the medieval period of rabbits doing wild stuff. And in particular, you see rabbits that are killing people, and we don't know why, right? So we will have all these manuscripts that have...
It's possible that it's because it's funny, to be honest, but who knows?
Little doodles where there is like a rabbit who's hunting a man, killing a man, rabbits having sword fights with each other, rabbits with battle axes.
Oh, that was a rabbit versus a dog.
Is cutting people's heads off, and we don't really know what it's about. Sometimes we're like, baby, is this an allegory? Like, is this like some way of like a thinking about Jesus, which, you know, they love to do? And they might be, and we just kind of haven't figured it out yet. Or it might just be like a joke in the same way that the killer bunny rabbit here is a joke, where it's like, it's funny. The idea that like rabbits could kill people because obviously they're like cute and tiny and little and cuddly. But
you know, I like both. I like to think of both, because if you think about it, on one hand, if they thought it was really funny, then they think like us, which in a way kind of creates a connection, isn't it? Like a medieval person would find the movie funny. If they watched that scene, they would love it. And in fact, they would feel like, yeah, they would understand a sense of humor. But on the other hand, I also like the idea that, no, there is something behind this, and who knows what it is. Is this some kind of connection with black magic? Is that something they thought? Some legends that we have lost? Like, there might be something else. And I think I kind of like both. But maybe the latter a bit more than the first.
But you do have a trope of bringing out a bunny as a killer object. And we just haven't figured it out yet. It's either a joke that we can't quite parse, or it's got more meaning. I like to kind of think that it's just a joke. Like, it's a joke in the same way that this is. You know, the reason why it works and the reason why you include it and the reason why it's funny is that it's ironic, because a bunny wouldn't kill you. And that's a really maybe surface level way of relating to it, and there might be some deeper code, but fundamentally it works, and it is funny. That's what this scene proves. Dang it, we're not so different after all.
You better not.
Exactly, yeah, I like that.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not interested.
So in real life, in 932, we've got a king of the English. It is not Arthur, sorry lads. It is actually Ethelstan, which is one of those really great early English names. Bring it back. Name your kid Ethelstan, and then
who doesn't know the name Ethelstan after watching Vikings?
Tell me about it. This is what I want. And he does rule over like a contiguous body that is called England. We're no longer in the days of the Heptarchy. We don't have all these separate kingdoms, but the idea of being English is kind of new, and there is still like a lot of autonomy in different places in England because it's kind of big, it's sort of hard to rule everything. But one thing about pre-Norman England is they're like big old bureaucrats. So we've got actually pretty good records about everything that happens at this time. These guys simply love to make a roll or a charter of some description. Which is nice for me. You know, if you're a big old nerd, it's like, oh, well, yeah, is that a charter? Baby. But, you know, for you, it's probably not that sexy.
I'm not sure that a charter, being interested in a charter would make you a nerd. It makes you a historian. This makes you a nerd. Mega Man 2. What? Subscribe to my gaming channel, link in the description. Alright, what else have we got here? So mostly, alright, so we got unknown titles. No titles in these sections. But I see a castle here and I like it, so let's click it. Oh, it's still at the castle. Goodness gracious, it's like one scene. 1 hour for one scene. Let's check this one out.
I very much like all the musicians, though, because one thing that absolutely happens in medieval castles is there are musicians. Medieval people are like, yes, I crave a lute.
Absolutely.
So, like, you probably have people who are working in a band there, but there's also super, super famous troubadours that kind of, like, go from court to court. They are known as particularly good singers or good players, and they can kind of, like, move around
Man,
Europe.
look at the colors. I would love for like movie to be made once in my lifetime with this, like dropping the whole trope that we get all the time with everything is brown and grey and dirty and miserable, and instead you make a movie. Or you can still show the difficulties of living in the Middle Ages. I'm not saying like the violence and all that, absolutely, but at least show this. Like, give me this. Oh, it will be so good.
If they want to. So they will sometimes compose their own songs, or sometimes they just play the hits. But these are a really big function courts. Like, one of the things that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to dazzle with music as much as you are with tapestries and food and stuff like that. See, one of the first things that you see here is like a form of torture, which is the wheel. And the wheel is kind of like a slightly later form of torture. Like, let's be very careful with our torture designations. And I would expect to see that more kind of in the late medieval period. Yeah. And also, one thing to kind of keep in mind is that torture is not actually that common in the medieval period. Does it happen? Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, it really does. But it's not like you're walking down the street one day, you look at a knight wrong, and they're like, that's it. I'm putting you on the wheel, right?
No, yeah, she's correct. And also a lot of, like, for instance, the witch trials, as we have said already on this channel a couple of times, mostly happen. It did happen a little bit in the Middle Ages, but mostly happen after the Middle Ages were already over.
The thing that happens with torture, and the reason why like these big public displays of bodies and things like that happen, is because it was really hard to get caught if you did something wrong. So when they did catch a criminal doing something, they're like, quick, make a big scene about it.
Yeah,
right?
Of course, it's control of the masses. Fear-mongering and scare tactics.
Right? And so that's why you would do stuff like, I don't know, when you beheaded someone, put their heads on London Bridge to like warn other people off. But it wasn't like this was something that was an everyday occurrence. The reason why you would have these big gruesome displays is a deterrent, since it was so easy to get away with crime. I like wheels because they show up in Hieronymus Bosch paintings, and he's one of my favorite late medieval painters.
For me, it would be Raffaello Sanzio.
Like hell scenes and stuff like that. So, you know, to me, it's like coming home.
Or Piero della Francesca. These are the two authors that I like the most when it comes to medieval painting and Renaissance painting, in fact.
Seeing someone get tortured on the wheel. But, you know, just normal things that people like, right? Oh, we'd simply love to see King Arthur fake ride interview with his, you know, trusty servant and some coconuts. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Okay, and then immediately you have a big castle come into sight.
Which is like ruins.
Right, and now here is a big issue with the historicity of this entire movie, which is that stone castles didn't exist in England until the Normans take over. It's a French thing. You don't see building in stone really at all until the Normans are really kind of...
Of course, we should underline that there were buildings in stone from the Roman period, but I'm just being pedantic as to be pedantic, of course, because clearly she means in a medieval sense, I imagine. Fortresses did exist though, but mostly with the earliest ones would have been wooden, the early medieval ones. They're also using the natural surroundings of an area for defense purposes, like rocks and all that.
in full force. So you can't have 932 and a big old stone castle. But we're going to do it anyway, whatever, I don't care.
From the castle of Camelot.
I love this, you know, where King Arthur kind of like announces himself and he gives all his titles. And
Right.
this is kind of correct. It is what we would expect to hear. He is the son of Uther Pendragon. There's a really weird story about how he is conceived. Let's not get into it right now. And he is called King of all Britons in medieval literature, because especially in the high medieval period, okay, by then there is a concept of England, right? There is, you know,
Yeah.
maybe not like a concept necessarily of Britain so much, but what they're kind of saying there is that it means both Wales and England.
Right.
Because King Arthur is sort of Welsh sometimes. He kind
Yeah.
of starts out being Welsh and then they kind of like move around.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's an amazing image. Man, I need to play some Knights of the Round after this for Super Nintendo. Original hardware and CRT, of course. And clearly, when it comes to accuracy, this would be a late 14th century. But in fact, probably already going into the 15th, although the helmet's kind of late 14th. But then again, I actually love my favorite iteration of King Arthur and Sir Lancelot is in full plate. So give them late 15th century armor. I don't even care.
Around where he's from. Like sometimes he's from Cornwall, which is also a very Celtic place at the time. And then he eventually kind of like moves more and more into England, like as the period goes on. So we would kind of expect some kind of like big declaration like that. And it is like a real literary trope, kind of like saying who he is. And yeah, they talk about him as the defender of England and a guy who defeats the Saxons. Because there's this sort of idea that there is like a natural kind of maybe Celtic English person that was there after Rome leaves that like fought with the Saxons, and that's who Arthur represents. So it's kind of historically accurate that, you know, standing outside a castle and just shouting that, less so. Because like a king, when he rides up, he's going to be like a fancy guy.
Man, look at that arming doublet. Look at that tight waist and puffy sleeves. I love it. I love it. That's why I enjoy wearing my arming doublet. It's been washed.
Wearing like really fancy armor. He's going to have all these trappings and things that let you know that he's definitely a king. And they're going to see you coming and they're going to be like, oh, fancy guy alert. Right? And so either they're going to let you in because they know that you're a friendly fancy guy, or they are going to be preparing for war. In which case that wouldn't happen. So probably the yelling over castle walls, not so much. But I still think it's really funny. So I don't care.
I must speak with your lord and master.
You know, the coconuts in general, like, yeah, probably not in 932, which is what makes it funny. Interestingly, though...
And I love that the guard still knows what a coconut is, even though it's constantly bashing the fact that they shouldn't be there. It's genius, my gosh. Bring back 70s humor.
Coconuts, by the time you hit the late medieval period, so like the 1400s or so, are like this super big luxury item, and everyone is like, coconut. And it's like something that you would make a goblet out of, and you'd be like, got a coconut cup. You like that? Coconuts. And it's a big, big flex. 932, it's probably a bit of a strain on the trade network to actually get coconuts into England, but you would be surprised what they do have. Spices come over from India all the time. You get lapis lazuli that's coming in from Afghanistan, things like that. So there definitely is a trade network. It's just that like coconuts, you kind of want them to be at least a little bit fresh, and that is a little bit less so. Also because everyone else is going to eat them on the way. England is very far away. So probably not with the coconuts.
All right, number ones, but as I say, I don't want to react to the whole thing. I think I'm going to stop here for the reaction. Do feel free to go and check it out, but I might make my own dedicated video to the killer bunnies. We'll do an investigation together. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start working on it right off, right away. Thank you very much for watching. See you tomorrow. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much.